Over the past year and a half, we've spent 345 days pet sitting. We've stayed in New York City, California, Florida, Nashville, Mississippi, and all over Melbourne in Australia. Overall, it has been amazing. We've been able to travel and not spend a massive chunk of our limited funds on accommodation. Your big expenses when you're not settled are accommodation, travel, and food, so heavily reducing your probable number one is insane. When I say we've saved $44,000 US, that is a high medium estimate. A lower figure would be around $13,000 or £10,000, being what I'd not like to spend for accommodation for 2 people over that period. Depending on where you're going, you might save more or less. You can tell we've been to some more expensive places, so we saved more than £30 per night. To add to that, all bar one of the places we've been, we've had the run of the whole apartment or house, and 90% of them have been amazing. We have definitely traded up instead of staying in a hotel that's really pokey or having a shared bathroom. A high estimate would be more like double that, more like $100,000 saving, but we wouldn't have been able to afford to stay in those places. The amount of time you stay somewhere does matter, so if you're paying one nightly fee for a hotel, that is higher than if you commit to a week or a month. That's another top tip for you, stay longer where possible. Some of the places we've stayed, you would pay an absolute massive chunk more if you booked accommodation for the night. What I'm saying is that this is not an exact science. You've got a scale from what I'd like to spend to what I probably have to spend to what the actual value of those places would fetch. Alright then, you can probably guess from the name, but to be clear, pet sitting is where you stay in somebody's house and take care of their pets. The service that we use doesn't exchange any money, though there is a sign-up fee for both parties to both pay for the service and give you a bit of extra security. We have 2 cats, and before we went away, we were looking at catteries for them, and it would be a minimum £1,000 per month per cat. It's so expensive, and they would be confined to this really small, miserable cage. It's just not something that you want to do long-term for your pet. It's not in their best interests. Bottom line, you pay a lot of money for your animal to be unhappy. On the one hand, we have it being very expensive to have accommodation while you're away, and on the other hand, we have it being very expensive to have your pet taken care of, and thus the twain shall meet. Do not fall into the trap of going, oh fantastic, I'll just go away and I'll have free accommodation because I'll pet sit. That is not how it works. You have responsibilities. First up, it's a job. You've got things to do and limitations on the time you can leave the house. It's not your animal and you need to err on the side of caution. There are also risks. To the pet sitter, you are staying in a stranger's house, so you need to make sure you've done your due diligence. For the homeowner, there is a stranger coming into their house. There's a lot of valuable personal stuff in there, so do not be surprised if someone doesn't automatically trust you or acts rather edgy. That is a totally normal response. You have to earn trust. And for the animals, they don't understand that their owner's gone away. Change can really stress them out. The best thing for you to do is fit into their normal schedule, even if it's an inconvenience. That is your job. You've signed on for that, for the free accommodation. There is a limit though. Some animals like to sleep in bed with you and that can be really disruptive. Both parties should be honest about expectations from the outset. Pet sitter should not have to sacrifice their mental health. The third thing to bear in mind is that everyone has different standards. The majority of people we have come across have very high standards, or if they don't, they've pretended they do and done a deep clean of the house before we got there, which we totally do with our own house. What a pet sitter needs to do is either adapt to a higher standard or be able to deal with a lower standard. And amongst other things, I'm talking about cleanliness. I'd say pet sitting is not for normal holiday goers. You have a limited time in a very specific location and you want to make the best use of that. If you were to pet sit, there's no guarantee you can find a sit in the first place, and then you'd be limiting your time out and about. This could be for people who want to explore a single place for a longer period of time and maybe they're on a budget. Or it's consideration for you at home. Perhaps you pay rent on a crappy flat and your lease is coming to the end of its life. If you love animals to boot, consider pet sitting. Let's have a quick specky at UK average rent and bills, because with a house you have to pay council tax, gas and electric. At current UK averages, you can expect to pay £1,500 per month or £18,000 per year. If you can pet sit for 10 months of the year and stay with family and friends for a few weeks, or maybe in a hotel for a few nights, do you think you'd be spending £18,000? Not if you did it sensibly. You would be paying less doing that than you would be renting a flat. Let's apply current exchange rates and see what this would look like per month and year in US dollars, euros and Australian dollars. Slight proviso, the most popular countries for English-speaking pet sitting websites are English-speaking ones, or those which have quite a large expat population. We'll go into money-saving tips for longer-term travel in non-English-speaking countries in another video. But hypothetically, you could manage it. You could pet sit in the UK for 5 years and save £90,000. That is a hefty house deposit. If you think outside the box, you are gaining life experience, meeting a load of people, and saving a ton of money. If we didn't have 2 cats and a mortgage, I would 100% be trying this. It just feels so obvious. I hadn't thought about it before 2 years ago, and we've been doing it ever since, and it It's amazing. Hopefully that's given you some food for thought on how you can apply it. See you next week. I can't remember how we first decided to pet sit. We just started it before we left for America, and we did it for a few days, and then it just made more and more sense. We started looking for more stays. We realised that we could do longer stays, and then suddenly we had almost no accommodation bills. It is an absolute no-brainer. It does have its downsides, but our minds were just totally blown.